Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, and welcome. If you're new to my channel, my name is Lena, and for my OGs, you know my intro, and it's never gonna stop, hopefully, unless I lose my voice. So today is recording day. I just uploaded yesterday the actual, today. Well, this video will be up probably Sunday. So Saturday, I recorded the day of recording of this episode that we're going to go through in Sex and the City. I hope you guys caught it. It's behind the magic. Not much magic. So now I'm recording the Sex and the City season 3, episode 4, Boy Girl, written by Jenny Bix. And this is definitely one that took me by surprise back then for very different reasons why it took me by surprise now. So it aired in 2000, and back then I learned a new word and a new sexual orientation, and apparently so did Carrie and Charlotte, and I think Miranda. Samantha, of course, pretty much knew. So when I rewatched it now, it is very interesting, almost 30 years later, how we have progressed from learning this, for me, learning this new sexual orientation to where we are today as far as fluidity through different types of sexualities. And it's very norm. So it's a very interesting, time capsule to watch this and have different reactions for different times. So I hope you guys enjoy this and go through this discovery and understanding where I was mentally back then with my friends and how we all as a group, as a country, as a nation, as human beings have evolved from watching something like this that was my discovery to where we are today. So let's begin. The scene opens with Carrie narrating, and she says that it has been told that New Yorkers are very jaded and that we have seen and done everything and we're not fazed by anything. And I can attest to that wholeheartedly. It takes a lot to surprise me when it comes to living, working, breathing New York. Even though I moved here back after being away 15 years, I can vehemently tell you that I've seen more in New York than I ever did in Miami. And that's pretty shocking because I've seen some nasty stuff in Miami too. As she goes through the myriad of different scenarios in the scene, you can tell that, for me, I think one of the most, I'm trying to think one thing that shocked me. I still am shocked on not so much as public urination, people sexually relieving themselves in person, outside or in the subway. It's not that I'm shocked. It pisses me off. The first time I was shocked because I was very young and I didn't understand what was going on. But after that, once you see it once, you become either desensitized or enraged. Pick one. Pick one. Pick one. So I pretty much I've only seen a dead body once, and that was frightening. I was with my mother and my brother, and we're walking down. I think we were coming out of Macy's, and it was springtime. It was a little dark outside, and the police hadn't arrived just yet. They were arriving, and we saw a dead body of a man. I'll never forget this. It's seared in my memory, crouched in a corner against the wall. And I couldn't have been any more than 9, 10 years old in my life. I will never forget seeing that. And especially now that I watch these shows like SVU, Law and Order, SVU. I'm watching the new one, Law and Order, Organized Crime with Christopher Meloni. I just started watching it. It's 5 seasons. I just got into the first season. Chicago PD, like that, you see it on camera, you see it on film, you see it, but to see it live, he had a gunshot wound to his head. That's the only time I've ever seen a dead body in person. So I will probably be shocked if I see one again, but that first initial time of seeing it was pretty striking. Now, I don't know if it's par for the course living in an urban area. I think that, yeah, When you watch it on television, especially serial procedurals, it seems like it's every day, every week, and I'm sure it is. But I have been lucky and blessed that I only got to see it once. Never saw it on the train, never saw it on the platform. You know, I hear these stories, and I have stopped taking the subway for almost 30 years now. I have stopped taking the subway. I don't take the subway. You couldn't get me on a subway to save my life. I wouldn't do it. I don't like it. I did it for a long, long time, almost from the age of 5 until I was 25 when I had my son. I stopped taking the subway. I won't do it for various reasons. I have been spooked on subways. So to be jaded in New York is a thing. So one of the reasons why this is coming up is because Charlotte, it has a new gallery opening. And one of the openings is the pictures of women who are dressed like men. And I'm not talking about, you know, very obvious looking, you know, type. The pictures that they were showing, there's a photographer, an artist who actually legitimately makes them look completely like men. You wouldn't even be able to tell they were ever women, which is what they're all fascinated about when they're looking at these pictures. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that's a woman, which is interesting. At the time, I thought that was interesting as well. So as they are going through the pictures, the artist shows up and, you know, Charlotte introduces them to the girls and she gets, you know, he starts to say that gender is fluid. You know, there's a lot of femininity in men and there's a lot of masculinity in women. And that's why he decided to create this, you know, collage of pictures, and he has real women that he changes into men. So here comes the Charlotte storyline. She finally gets something. And I tell you, I've said it once and I'll say it again. She's a freaky dicky. Don't fall asleep on Charlotte. Charlotte got something in her. So as this man is explaining all this to the women, Charlotte gets all fluttered because he starts to lightly flirt with her, and she decides to walk away, and the girls notice, like, what the hell's going on with you, Charlotte? And she goes, oh my God, I just can't be around him. And she's like, is it because of, you know, the pictures? And she goes, no, because I find him hot. Samantha's like, well, ask him out. And she's like, you know how Charlotte, I can. She's like, oh girl, you need to like grow a pair, especially in reference to the pictures. So that's going to be Charlotte's storyline, where she is going to change into something. Now we have in the middle of this conversation where, you know, Miranda's going to leave and she asked if Carrie wanted to take a ride, a taxi. And, you know, Carrie says, no, she's got a date with Sean. Sean happens to be, as they all noted, oh, the 26-year-old. Now, please remember, she's 33. That's not too much of an age difference, but there is a difference. And as Miranda says, that his generation has a completely different alphabet. So they're all making fun of her, and she goes, oh, age is just an illusion. She's off to meet her 26-year-old Sean. So that's going to be her pocket storyline. Now we have Miranda, who is going to go home and be greeted by her lover. I want to be your lover. I don't know what the hell came over me just now. I might be in a good mood. It's Sunday. Sorry, it's Saturday, 7 a.m. I've only had 2 cups of coffee. I want to be your lover. A little spicy. And her lover would be Steve. So we've got the storyline that's going to be with Steve. Now, let's break off to the last pocket, which is going to be Samantha. And Samantha's story arc is going to be focused on her getting a new male assistant who is probably the same age as going to be Carrie's boyfriend. Not very age appropriate, especially because she's older than the women. And we're going to figure out how she deals with having a male assistant. So those are the 4 storylines. We've got a new sexual orientation that I didn't know, which will come up very soon and relates to Carrie and her 26-year-old generation. I don't know. We have Charlotte, who is going to be a Mr. Mrs. with the illusionist. We have Miranda, who cannot for the life of me or for the life of her settle into any normal relationship. She has to fight this relationship all the way since day one, Steve. And then we have Samantha, who has to figure out how she's going to deal with a male assistant that clearly wants to be her lover. All right, people, listen. We're going to get into the arcs. So do me a favor if you like this, stay tuned. If I'm bringing any value and if you've been catching up with any of my videos and you want to stay in tune, subscribe. Stay tuned. I want to be your lover. I'm sorry. This is the song of the episode. It doesn't play in the episode, but now I can't get it out of my freaking head. So y'all just going to have to hear me sing it. So let's get into the next scene, which is now after the Art of Illusion at the gallery of Charlotte is over and everybody's at their perspective lives. We have Miranda who shows up at home and guess who's there? Steve. And he is very comfortably on her couch and she's shocked to see him because she didn't expect to see him. And apparently he still had the key from when he was taking care of her cats or something like that. Basically, he has carte blanche to go into the apartment because he has a key. And Miranda's like, I didn't expect you. And of course, she's pushing him away. And he's like, oh, well, I decided to hang out. She takes control of the remote because that's not what they're going to be watching. And she keeps interrogating him. Oh, didn't you have to work tonight? He goes, yeah, but I have clothes here that I can change into. And she's like, oh, yeah, that. And, he doesn't have to work until 10. So he's trying to finagle her into the boudoir. He's like, yes, but I don't have to be at work until 10. And they start to kiss. And as they're in their boudoir session, as Carrie narrates, she loves the man in her, but she doesn't like the fact that he's in her apartment as she's throwing his clothes that he has kept in the room, for emergency purposes out onto the floor as he is still boudoiring with her. Very telling, the signs that we should have all picked up that this was just not going to be working out. Not then. Not in the recap. Okay. Now, Carrie is on her date, and her date, Sean, has taken her ice skating. And apparently, when you go ice skating, you smoke a cigarette as you're ice skating. Now, I am not sure if this is a new Olympic edition because I've not watched the Olympics in 20 years, though it's on, I swear, every year I feel like it's on all the time now, and I have yet to watch any of it. I got bored from the Olympics from a very early on age. I don't watch it, but apparently you could smoke while you're skating. And not only can you smoke, because Carrie can't skate, but she can smoke the skate out of her. She says that this is not a date until there's alcohol involved. And Sean has got flasks in his shirt to appease the smoking queen. So as they're resting their tootsies, and I haven't gone ice skating in many, many years, nor will I. But I can tell you this much. I was fascinated with figure skating in the Olympics, and I wanted to, for a brief moment, learn how to figure skate. And then I didn't. So as they're sitting down, they're chit-chatting after they had their flash drinks. And he starts to ask her, when was the last relationship that you had? And that's when Carrie stops in her tracks as she narrates, oh, there it is, the question on the third date. And she's visibly perturbed. And he goes, whoa, is everything okay? And she goes, well, I broke up with someone a while ago. Well, at least she acknowledges that the relationship with Mr. Big was a while ago and it was not going to work out. It didn't just happen. And she says 2 years of back and forth and he just realized that it wasn't going to work out. And then she asked the same question to him. And he says, well, I've been in 3 serious relationships. One was, I think, Kayla. And he said that she was a little crazy. And then I want to say the other one was either Laura or Elizabeth. I can't remember. And do forgive me. I don't keep notes. And he says she couldn't commit. And then the other one was, I want to say Matthew. And I could be wrong again. And that's when it struck Carrie that it's boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. And even then I was like, oh, what is happening here? So the next thing they pan into is that they're in the diner, our favorite place for the girls to meet. And she expresses to the girls that Sean is bisexual. And I'm going to tell you right now, that is the first time back then in the year 2000 that I ever even heard this reference. Never even knew that you could be bisexual. Apparently, many people didn't know this either. I don't know how true that is. None of my friends realized what that was. And it was the first time we all heard it. And we're like, what is that? I didn't know that you can not make a decision. You can go either way. How far we have come today. Okay. So first time hearing this, I was very intrigued by the conversation. So the stance between the women is Samantha says, well, of course he is. He took you ice skating. I could have told you that. I have been taken ice skating by men. And I started to question, is that true? So, yeah. So, Carrie is concerned because she is like, I don't know how he just blurted that out. It's like, girl, boy, I'm a bisexual, as if I live in Connecticut. And then Miranda's like, well, I don't think, or Colorado, not Connecticut. And Miranda's like, I don't think you're allowed to be bisexual in Colorado. Oh my God. And poor Charlotte. Charlotte's like, and what did you say? Was it okay? And she goes, yes, I had to tell him it was okay, but I'm not okay with it, poor Carrie. And I'm just sitting there. And it's funny. Like, again, I can remember distinctly how I felt watching this with my girlfriends in 2000 and how I feel about it today. It's so normalized. And it's like, we know about it, like back then I was just like, and then Charlotte's reaction is like, well, first of all, Samantha, like, listen, accept it. Enjoy it. You're not going to marry him. You're just kissing him. And she goes, but I don't know if I can be with a bisexual. And why are you so okay with it? She goes, honey, I'm trisexual. I try anything at least once. I think I've heard this line from her before. So she's very up on this. And she goes, this generation, they don't believe in labels, whatever generation Sean is supposed to be at 26. And poor Charlotte is like, I love labels. Either you're gay or you're straight. Pick a side and stay with it. And I was at that moment, I said the same thing. Miranda was like, isn't being bisexual just one step away from Gayville or Ricky Martinville? You know what, I'm gonna say this, and I don't know if this is gonna deter people. It is quite refreshing to watch a show that they were able to speak freely without repercussions on the internet of these storylines, and we can listen. We may not agree, we may not understand it, but it was nice to have shows that we can sit down and have open dialogue and understand the different variations of people. Because had I not seen this show, it may have taken me a little bit longer to know what a bisexual was. Okay? Right or wrong, whatever you stand, however you stand, it's nice that we didn't have the anti-establishment that goes on that I see on the internet right now when it comes to more shows now, where either you're too this or you're too that, and everybody's screaming and yelling that it's too diverse, it's too woke. And I've mentioned this before. It's one of these time period capsule things that I don't think any generation now really is understanding that. Because whenever you open your mouth about any side right now, you get hammered by either one or the other. You're to this or you're to that. So it was nice back then. And I don't know if I'm going to get any flack about speaking about this now, but this is something that I truly miss about being disconnected. We're so connected and we're so vile out there, and people, have so many really deep opinions, and some of it I don't even believe that it's that. I think they're just doing it for clicks on YouTube, and they get really angry. And my stance on this is like, this is a very interesting scenario. I didn't know about it. To each his own. Live your life. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not God. That's for you to decide how you're going to live, and had it not been for this episode, I would have, again, never known about bisexuality. Now, I did understand what it meant by, is it one step away from being gay? That was my first reaction. I'm like, but isn't that just being gay and you're just being greedy? And that's another thing that was brought up at the table. Like, pick a side, and I really believed that at that time. I was like, really? So now you get all of it. You can't just be one or the other now. Now would you just get to pick and choose anything? Like, yes, I did believe that. Growing older, meeting more bisexuals, meeting more gay people, meeting more straight people, and understanding that dichotomy and that understanding of what's happening in this world. I don't feel the same way about that. I think that, it's a lifestyle. It's something that, you need to go through and be with someone that can explain it to you in their version. And I've met a few of them and I've spoken to them about it. And it's an interesting concept. I personally am completely straight. I have no inklings to be bisexual or to be a lesbian. But I've appreciated getting to know these people because you don't know who it is. This whole thing about being underground for so long, and now it's much more open. But with the openness also came with a lot of backlash, because we are also open on the internet. So I didn't want to lecture. I didn't want to get into a lecture on this, but that's how I felt back then. So as the girls start to go home after, the discussion at the round table of the Knights of the Queens, so we have Miranda's going to go home because now she gets 3 hours without Steve and total control of the actual remote, which is making her happy. And then we have Samantha, who's at her office and she's yelling at someone on the phone that she needs to find a good assistant and that to please send someone over. And as she's stipulating this to, I guess, the headhunter on the phone, the male assistant who walks through the door says, I'm here for the job. And Samantha is intrigued. He's inappropriately underaged, but we don't go there with Samantha. And she looks at him and he's kind of hot. He's not ugly. And she hires him right away. So now we got her set up to see how it is to have another man other than Samantha in her office. Mm-hmm. And then we have Charlotte at her gallery where her illusionist, artiste, shows up to pick up his check. And by the way, when I saw the checkbook, I was like, do people still have checkbooks nowadays? That's another time capsule thing. When I saw that, I was like, wow, I haven't seen a physical check in years. Everything is electronic, digital, virtual. You don't feel, touch anything, right? So as he's picking up the check, he tries to convince her that she should model for him to one of these illusionists, male into female. And she's like, no, I can't. He goes, it's because you don't think you're a model? She goes, no, because I'm not butch. I don't think all those women were butch and they wanted to be turned into the illusionist version of a male. So he's like, no, I think that you have a man inside of you and you should do it. Doesn't take much because Charlotte is intrigued. I'm telling you, people, don't fall asleep on Charlotte. So let's get to the next scenes as we dive into the illusionist and Charlotte, Sam and her man, Sam the man, Carrie and boy girl Sean, and Miranda, who cannot for the life of her just let Steve be with the man. Just be with the man. They do. let's see how this all turns out for the ladies and their different perspective boy girl boy girl boy girl relationships. So the next scene we have is now Carrie is out with Sean at a new club named Hair, all filled with children. And Carrie is like, "Oh, the name of this club is Hair, like the musical." And he's like, "No, like on your head." I am not sure what type of club that would be named Hair on your head. What are you serving at this new club? And as she is flirting, she starts to kiss him and he pulls away and he starts looking around, and she's become now completely obsessed with the fact that he's a bisexual and she doesn't understand this new sexual orientation. And she starts to interrogate him. "Hey, are you looking at that guy or that girl?" And he's like, "I am looking for the bathroom." And he's like, "What's going on with you?" And she's like, "This whole new bisexuality is throwing me off for a loop. I don't know if you're going to be looking at girls or guys." And she's like, "I'm looking at you." The next scene you have is they're in bed together, because that's what happens after you have this serious conversation about sexual orientation. You jump into bed with them, especially when you're confused and you don't understand what the hell's going on with him. That's exactly what she does. And as they finish their boudoir session, she starts to again interrogate him. "Do I kiss better than a boy?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. And what about me?" And she goes, "Oh, top 2%." And then she starts to go into another scenario. "If there was a hot guy walking down the street and a pretty girl across the street, who would you go for?" And he's like, "Carrie, stop. This is not about looks. This is about the person." And she can't wrap her head around the fact that she could be potentially dating someone that can go either way. And she already feels intimidated and insecure that at this point, when you're with a guy that's heterosexually straight, you know that any pretty girl is, a red flag. But now you could potentially be dating someone that anybody hot, male or female, could be potentially, someone that you need to be focused on. And I'm going to say this. I totally got it. I totally understood what she was doing. Now, I have friends, and at that time, maybe about 3, 4 years later, I had a good friend that was bisexual, and I asked the same questions, but from a friendship perspective. Like, we would go out downtown and stuff like that, and then we're like, "Well, do you think he's hot? Do you think she's hot?" And it was something that we talked about, which is how I was able to understand a little bit more about bisexuality. But I totally got the question, because I thought to myself that if I was dating him, how would I feel if any potential person, not just a male or female, could be a potential person that he's cheating on me with? So I got why she couldn't wrap her head around it at that moment. Even at that moment, I did, because those would be questions that I would ask, but I wouldn't have asked them. I wouldn't have asked them. I wouldn't. You know, I was asking my friend, you know, especially 3 years later after I saw this episode, and we openly talked about it, and his reaction about it being about the person, not about it being the attractiveness of either one or the other. I don't know if it's true for all bisexuals. I couldn't tell you, but it was something that I totally got when she was going through that thing. I just felt that it was uncomfortable the way that she was going after him. Like, if you're making the conscious decision to do this, if you have questions about it, first do it out of bed, not right after sex, and have an open dialogue with this person to really understand what's happening. Because I couldn't imagine being in that situation and I'm being interrogated about my orientation. Like, I just had sex with you, right? Like, what's going on? Talk to me. So I think he handled it, that they wrote it really well, but it was as far as how he handled it, but not the way that Carrie was. And of course, she's never been with someone like that in her mind. She says she dated someone in college that was bisexual that ended up with a guy anyway. So this was all new to her. It was weird. And only because I experienced it with a very good friend of mine that I was able to be more understanding of this whole scenario now. But, and I've never knowingly dated a bisexual, so I don't know. I never had the opportunity to be put into Carrie's position. But it would have been interesting to see how I would have reacted before I saw this episode. If I would have reacted the way that Carrie was, I don't think I would have jumped into bed with him. I think I would have had a lot of questions and tried to understand what is happening. And I'm a very jealous person. So imagine if I had to be jealous between male and female, no. So the next scene we have is Miranda is in bed in the middle of the night. Steve is sleeping and she is laying up in the bed. And then she wakes him to tell him that he is on her side of the bed. So she's already perturbed. We already know where this is going. And he's like, okay, tomorrow we'll go to store and buy pillows to build a pillow fort between us. And he's laughing. He's like laughing it off. He's not reading the room. And you would think as many times as he's known Miranda that he should pick up her attitude. But dude. And then she gets upset because she sees the pile of clothes that he leaves behind. And she goes, you need to keep that pile neater. And he's like, well, if you would give me a drawer or a box. And she goes, oh, now you want a box or a drawer? And he wakes up and he smiling says, well, actually, I was wondering, I wanted to move in. And as Carrie narrates, the words that every single woman wants to hear. Well, not me. But sure, I can see that happening. And she is like, whoa, what do you mean move in? And she gets out of the bed and she starts folding his clothes like, we're moving too fast. We're not ready. No one's dying. And, Steve gets upset. He jumps out of the bed and he's like, fine. She goes, I'll give you back the key. And she's like, no, keep the key. And he's like, no. And she's like, I feel suffocated. This is what she tells the man that's been inside her in more ways than one. I feel suffocated. Words that will follow them forever. Ever, 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 ever. Let me clear my throat. So he's like, oh, Miranda, you're just like the man in this relationship. Well, that set her off. Because the next thing we have is that her and Carrie are in this new exercise routine called the Inner Goddess, and they're floating around with scarves and hip popping and find your inner lotus. And I'm like, I would have never taken that class. I have no lotus inside me. Okay, just saying. And as Miranda is complaining that she's trying to find her inner goddess, and the instructor is telling her to pop your hips, pop your hips, pop, pop, pop your hips. And poor Miranda can't pop her hips. And then she claims, see, I can't pop my hips. I'm a guy. And poor Carrie's like, you're not a guy. And as they've both decided that it's time to let go of their inner goddess, okay? They're outside walking and, Miranda's concerned because, she doesn't understand why she doesn't want to move in with Steve and that she's too manly, as he states, that he's the man. And Carrie's like, listen, in every relationship, there's always an alpha person, an alpha male, and it happens to be Miranda. Had I not remembered this episode today, it explains everything. Because, as you start going over through the years, you forget certain things. And now I remember, I'm like, yeah. She became the alpha male in the relationship. A little bit too alpha, as it turned out. But, she found her inner God in the recap. So now we have Shalat. Shalat is dressed like a man. The illusionist has convinced her to wear a mustache, a suit, and she's a teeny tiny little man, not unusual of the men that I've encountered in Miami. So I was very comfortable watching the scene. And as he is like, oh my God, you look amazing. She's like, oh, I think I need a bigger sock. And as he socks it to her, literally puts it down her pantaloons. Charlotte gets more excited as she's being bulged, and suddenly she turns around and starts attacking him. Blah, 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 blah. And he rips off her mustache. And as Carrie narrates, we don't know if it was the D word, but all of a sudden, Charlotte grew a pair of balls. And they start going at it right there. Suit and all, less mustache, as Charlotte has now become a man. And as I said before, I'll say it again. She got a little freak in her. Yeah, baby. I want to be your lover. Stay tuned. Let's wrap this bad boy up. So after the inner goddess exercise ridiculousness of Miranda and Carrie, one of the big things that happens is that Miranda goes back home after her fight and her goddess, or fight with her goddess. And Steve has taken his laundry of shame that's sitting on the corner out, and he left. And she felt bad. And this will come up very soon why. So the next thing we have is Samantha and her assistant boy toy, who she is very attracted to because he's very aggressive in the ways that maybe it's not conducive of her business, but she likes it. She's a tiger. So as she is commanding him to go out and deliver whatever the hell is in her hand and drop it off at the post office, he is not even trying to pay attention to her. And he's like, I'm going to do this because this is this. And she's like, I need you to get up and do this the way I want you to do it. And he's like, I know what I'm doing. And, she goes, you don't understand. I'm your boss and you do it the way I want you to do it. The phone rings. He picks up. He starts yelling at the person on the phone. And he says, by the way, your parties suck. And he hangs up the phone. Obviously, it was a client for Samantha because she's in public relations. And she just looks at him. She goes, the bad news is you're fired. The good news is now I can F you. And they start going at it on the table. And she's like, let's do it on the desk. And he's like, no, let's do it on the chair. And she's like, no, on the desk. And as Carrie narrates, they did it on the desk just the way Samantha wanted it, with her on top. So she had a male assistant for 2.5 seconds, and she had sex for much longer than that. And that is Samantha, and that's her arc. Next up is Miranda. Miranda, Steve is there. Apparently he got in again, or she invited him, and she's got a bag full of groceries. And she's all nervous about the fact that, she's late. And he's like, it's okay. The world is not going to come to an end. No one's dying. That's my rendition. And as she says, I'm sorry, I'm late. And he's like, it's not a big deal. And she's like, it's a big effing deal. And she drops the bag and the tomato sauce can breaks. And she gets upset and she starts to cry. And he's like, it's okay. Don't move. It's glass. And she goes, this is a big deal. I don't. This is where she gets into the reasons why she, in theory, didn't want him to move in. When I say in theory, that she's afraid that he's going to see things about her when they move in. She drops things. She breaks things. She sometimes doesn't do laundry for 2 weeks. Her sponges smell. And she's never lived with a man. And he's going to see all that. And he's like, yeah, I break things too. And she starts to cry on his shoulder. She goes, I don't want to lose you. That's the most important part. And at that time, I totally was behind her 100%. I was like, you're right. Because when you move in with someone, whether you're married when you move in or you move in and before you get married, whatever the construct is, you get to see things from people that you really don't really think about until you move in with them. I'm just saying. The masks come down. The illusion is broken. Say, yeah, baby. down in the comments below if you can completely understand. Now, some of us make it. Many of us don't. Some of us continuously try. And those are the ones that I really like to get to know. Why? So she starts to cry and she says, "Oh, I must be a woman because I'm crying." And a week later, Steve moves in. And off to the races we go. Into the burning wall. That is their relationship. Mm-hmm. Next scene is Charlotte. She hung up her illusionist picture, which we never saw again ever, I guess in her bedroom. And as Carrie narrates that, she never saw the illusionist ever again after her sock incident. And yeah, baby. And she narrates that she may have been that type of man, but Charlotte was just not that type of woman. We're still pretending that she's not? Yes, she is. Mm-hmm. You can run, but you can't hide. You little sucia. Yeah. It was one of the funniest storylines for Charlotte, okay? So, the scene, we have Carrie and Sean. They're going to a house party that Sean invited her to his friend's house. Going up the stairs, we find out that the friend happens to be one of the ex-boyfriends that he mentioned when he just said, "Hey, is this not a problem? I've had a relationship with a boy." His name is Mark, by the way. And she realizes, "Oh, Mark, your ex-boyfriend?" He goes, "Yeah, is that a problem?" Because that's his famous word. It doesn't really, it's just like, throw the bomb. "Is that a problem that I threw the bomb?" She goes, "No, okay." So as she takes off her coat, she's wearing a flower on her dress, that ghastly, horrific flower that she kept peddling and pushing to us as fashion. And as he introduces Carrie to Mark, the ex-boyfriend, who is now with a guy who has a baby together, Isabella, with 2 L's, no E. I remember that. Then he introduces her to Alanis Morissette, who's making a guest appearance in this episode, with someone that she's with, a blonde, okay? So you understand the confusion here, okay? So Alanis moves over to Carrie and says that she was married before. Who she was married to was the now husband of the ex-boyfriend of Sean, Mark, okay? So they were married for about a yearish. They broke up. I want to say the blonde that Alanis is more married to was also involved with Sean. This whole thing is being played out, and Carrie is like confused, and she's like, she don't know what's going on as she narrates. I'm like, well, that's good because I saw this 3 times and I still don't understand what's happening. So this is a free-for-all party. Everybody has been with everybody, whether married, not together, kissing, whatever the hell's going on here. Very open concept party. Let's put it open concept party. So, as you know, they introduce the straight friend. He notes to Carrie, "Hey, are you wearing pleather?" And Carrie's like, "Well, thank you for noticing." I'm like, "So we're going to ignore the flower? We're going to focus on the pleather. We're just going to ignore that ghastly thing? Okay, fine. Move over." So as she's trying to understand the dichotomy that's happening here, she's talking to him. "So this one was this one, you're with this one, that one's this one. Okay, so this is great. This is new to everybody." Alanis, I want to say it was Alanis. It could be wrong. Somebody comes over with "spin the bottle." And it's like, spin the bottle time. No, it wasn't her. It was another woman. Spin the bottle time. I have not played spin the bottle since I was 7. And it wasn't this spin the bottle. So as Carrie realizes that she hasn't played this game either, she goes, the 7th grade spin the bottle? Okay, let's play the game. They're all sitting around and they're spinning the bottle, and everyone starts kissing everyone. And when I tell you kissing, tongue kissing. Not exactly the spin the bottle that I recall. Very open-minded. married people kissing other people right in front of the married people, and their boy, girl, girl, boy, girl, girl, boy, they're all kissing. And finally, the spin the bottle hits. Alanis hits the bottle to Carrie, and she's like, she's smoking her cigarette, because at this point, I will give her the fact that she wasn't smoking crack. Okay, Carrie, smoke like a chimney, because I was smoking at this point. Okay, I was like, what's happening here? And she goes, oh, it's a girl. Sorry, I'll spin again. And Alanis says, no, it's okay. And she's like, okay. And she starts to approach Carrie. And it's not a full-on makeout session, but there's a little kissy, kissy, poo, poo, poo. And I'm like, did Sarah Jessica Parker make out with Alanis Morissette? And because we didn't have the internets then, I couldn't type that in. Like, what is happening right now? No, I had to relegate myself to looking at my friends to the right, to the left, and we're like, whoa, well, didn't make the cover that I remembered, but it was something. So she says, it was okay. It's like chicken. I don't know what that means. I guess she just thinks chicken is okay. I love chicken. I don't like kissing Alanis Morissette or any girl, but fine, to each their own. And she gets up, and Sean's like, where you going? She goes, oh, to get another pack of cigarettes, in her go-go gold heels, pleather wearing flower dressy. She goes down the stairs, and as she narrates, she never saw Sean again after the party. So she ran out like a thief in the night. And that, this whole generation may be the way they are, but she's going to be an old fart, and she's going to stick to her guns and be a girl that likes a boy. Ish. Kind of said that. And that was the end. The end. Stay tuned. Epilogue. And if you're enjoying this content and you're with me, and subscribe, because I would love to make 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And I'm going to bring in more content, more vlogs, more TV shows, and just a lot of me. It's all about me. Stay tuned. Epilogue. Listen, we have come a long way from this episode as far as understanding the different sexual orientations, being able to speak about it, being able to come out and be more free about it. This was in the year 2000, as shocking as it was back then. Again, we didn't have the internet to go out and freely say the pros and cons, or the negative or the bad or the good, as we do now. Because this show, if it would have come out now, God knows what would have been said, right? I learned a lot about different orientations. I did know about being gay or being straight. I had no clue about bisexuality. I've learned a lot in my years. I've met a lot of different types of people. I think it's interesting the visions of, or versions, they all say, because not every bisexual feels the same way as the one that I talked to or the one that was represented in the show. At the time, I did feel that it was being needy baby, greedy baby, like pick a side. I was totally on Charlotte's side. I was like, come on, for real? Can't you just stay on one side? I think it's interesting how people have accepted so many different lifestyles nowadays, and that generation led the way, to say the most, as far as openness. How this translated into what we got in Just Like Crap was completely different. It didn't address it in the way that it should have addressed it. I've always said that I was okay with understanding that the character of Miranda wanted to explore her lesbianism. It was the way that it was written, the way that it was not really presented in a most realistic, sensitive, exploratory way that it should have. Because again, in my conversations with many different people, I have met women who have been with men, had children with men, were married with men, and now are with women. And just based on the few that I've spoken to, they've always known that they've had those inklings inside of them. They just they never approached it. And when they were free to do so, they have decided to lean towards being with a woman. and never going back to being with a man. So it's not far-fetched that someone, a character or a person can do that, but the way that it was presented to us in this show with Miranda, that she was always with men and she always had that, you know, it never came up, you know, and because of that, they didn't lay the foundation properly when all of a sudden we were thrusted into her being a lesbian. It's like there was no self-reflection. There was no going back and trying to figure out how did this all happen, you know, conversation with the friends. It was arguing. It was like all of a sudden I have fantasies about Che, you know, they could have been written in a much more exploratory way to give us the ability to understand why and how someone changes the way they do. Not just, okay, because she's gay in real life now, Cynthia Nixon, now the character needs to be gay, instead of it being something that we can openly discuss and figure out, when did you realize this? You know, it was just like, we're going to throw this in your face and you're going to accept it. And just like crap, at the end, I'm going to like be picking up shit from a toilet, which is how it ended. So that was my issue. Like, watching it this way would have been interesting to see if we could have explored more on the character of Miranda, because I think that it could have been written a lot better. And just overall, you know, the difference between the Charlotte's kids, I mean, you know, that was never really touched upon properly either. It was completely, they fumbled the ball on that. I'm sorry. There was not enough sock to handle that one. It's just, I know it's a 30-year gap and so much has happened in the 30 years, but I don't feel that there was enough caring and understanding, not just from the writers, but to the audience, accepting what we should be accepting, like speaking loudly and having this open dialogue. It's just, here it is, you're done. And you know how I feel about that. I don't know if you could hear, I'm in the basement. If you hear the cat is outside my door. I remember we have 3 town cats. So one of them is screaming outside the door, which I'm going to go check on in a little while, because this is the first time I've actually heard the cat. And I told you I was concerned about them in the winter in the snow. So one of them is loud and proud. So if that Mike picked up the cat, that was the cat. If you didn't, then you probably have no clue what the hell I'm talking about. So this show addressed so many different things, so many different topics. Now we got into the bisexuality, Samantha being trisexual. She tries anything one time, you know. Now we're going to get into the next episode where it starts to really pick up, because you know who's coming? You know who's coming. And the in-depth relationship that Miranda goes through with actual Steve, and how that progresses and degresses and then progresses again. Mm-hmm. And you know, Shaw's gonna get her mans. And I say plural, mans. And Carrie can't make a decision. So the next few seasons is when it really starts to pick up. We have gotten past this hump. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you are inclined, for the 26% who watch and have not yet subscribed yet. I hope that you take the initiative and you join my beautiful community. And listen, I'm not here to judge anyone. I'm being open and honest with my feelings of how I felt about it back then. This is not a forum for us to have an open discussion about how you feel about if you're for or against, or if you hate it or whatever. It's just my observations of where we were culturally back then, where we are now, how they addressed it differently, how they could have addressed it in Just Like Crap. And, you know, be free in love. Love people with your heart. Let them be who they need to be in their own world. It's not your world. Why do you give a shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, don't try to maneuver or manipulate or try to abuse someone because you don't strongly believe on their lifestyle. Unless you're in that lifestyle because they're forcing you to be in that lifestyle, then who cares? That's my stance on it. And I have met beautiful, beautiful people from all types of orientations. And I'm so blessed and I'm so happy to have done that, because I was very sheltered until I saw this episode and I was like, what in the world is happening out there? Oh, suke suke. And I'm a New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker. And I thought I saw everything. But clearly I didn't. And now I can say I have. So let me know your thoughts. Drop a comment. I love reading your comments. I love how you guys engage. Let's hope that more people want to join in so we can expand this wonderful community and get more into depth into the psychology of this show. And I want to wish you all a blessed day, a blessed weekend, a blessed week, a blessed month, a blessed year. It's going to be my closing because from here to around the world that I reach, I want to thank you for being here for me and supporting my channel. As always, thank you, everyone. Take care. Goodbye. Mwah.